You about solving systems of linear equations using matrices. So I'm going to show you how to use your calculator and use matrices to solve these systems. There's a whole lot about matrices that I'm not telling you about because it would take an entire unit really to cover that. There's actually a course in college called linear algebra that uses a lot of matrices that some of you may take someday. Anyway, suppose you were asked to solve this particular system of linear equations. So we have three variables, three equations. Remember what we had to do? You pick two of the equations, eliminate a variable, then you take another combination of two equations, eliminate a variable, take those two equations, and there was a lot that you had to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the coefficients of the equations and build a matrix. And this is what a matrix looks like. This is actually a matrix equation. There's three matrices here. This first one is considered a 3 by 3 matrix because it has three rows and three columns. This one is considered a 3 by 1 matrix because it has three rows and one column. And this is also a 3 by 1 matrix. So notice I take the coefficients here in my first equation to be a 1, a 1, and a 1. So that's where these come from. A 1, a 3, and a 3, a 2, a 1, and a negative 1. So that's my coefficient matrix. Then I took my variables, x, y, and z, and I have them here. And I took my answers, and I have them here. Now, the way that matrix multiplication works, and I'm briefly telling you this, you would take this first number times this first variable here. So you would have, you kind of slide. If I were in class, I'd be able to show easier. But you go across this way. So 1 times x, 1 times y, 1 times z equals 4. And so that's kind of the equation here. Kind of hard to catch that here. That's okay. I just want to give you an efficient way to solve systems of equations using your calculator. So just know that you would build this equation. We use capital letters typically to name the matrix. So I'm going to call this matrix A, this one matrix B, and this one matrix C. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter into our calculator. So if you take your calculator and we're going to enter matrix A. So you're going to put second and then the matrix key. We want to edit. And we want to edit matrix A. So I want to make matrix A a 3 by 3 matrices. So I'm going to have 3 by 3. And now I'm going to just enter each number and just hit enter and it pops over to the next one. If you mess up, you can just go back and type over it. Okay, so now I have my matrix. You can kind of double check, make sure everything's right. So I'm going to quit that. Now I'm going to go back to my matrix. I don't need one for the x, y, z, but I am going to need one for and even though it's called matrix C, I'm going to put it, let's put it in matrix C. We'll just do that. So if I go over to edit, and let's go down to matrix C. And this is a 3 by 1, 3 rows, 1 column. And I have a 4, a 10, and a 3. Okay, so I'm going to quit. So if I go ahead and look back here, if you want to undo matrix multiplication, just like with multiplying numbers, we multiply by the inverse, which typically is like the multiply by the inverse, we divide, we multiply by the reciprocal, those ideas. So here we're going to use an inverse matrix. And the great thing about this is the calculator will do it for us. So I would multiply the left side by my inverse matrix, and I'm going to multiply the right side by my inverse matrix. So on my calculator, I'm actually just going to type in this portion right here, and I'm going to get my answer. So I'm going to type in second matrix, and I'm gonna, I want matrix A, so I'm gonna choose matrix A, but I want the inverse. So you hit the inverse key, which is right here, and it puts a little -1 there, times matrix C, so I go get matrix C, and I hit enter, and there are my answers. So this tells me that my answers, remember this was x, y, z. It tells me x equals 1, y equals 2, z equals 1. Pretty cool. Okay, let's try another one. So here is my system of equations. Now notice on my second equation I don't have an x. So when you write down the coefficients into your matrix, you need to put a 0 in there to mark the spot for where the x is, because you have 0x. So you're going to build your equation, and when you guys do your assignment, I want you to show me this much. I want you to show me your matrix equation. So you're going to do that part. I'm just going to pause this real quick and put all the information in my calculator. You might want to do the same. So on your calculator, and just let me mention, when you go second matrix, if you want to edit this, you have to go to edit first and then choose it. Okay, so I already, put my 3x3 matrix in there, but you do have to do that. But when you're just trying to calculate something, I'm just going to choose the matrix. So I want to choose that matrix where I have my coefficients listed. I want to do the inverse. I'm going to multiply by what I have stored in matrix C, which I have stored my values there. So I'm going to do that. And when I hit enter, I get my answers. So that tells me that x, whoops, need a pen tool. So we get x equals 1, y equals -1, z equals 5. Now remember, sometimes we had a no solution, sometimes we had infinite solutions. You will get some strange answers when that happens. So if you are doing a problem and that happens, that's going to be one of those situations. All right, so if we look at this next problem, this was actually one of the problems that in our notes, and I didn't do this one. I didn't solve it. I said, hey, you guys would be able to do this. So why don't you guys go ahead and pause this video, put the numbers in, build the equation, and see if you can do it. So here's my matrix. So when I'm going to go ahead and solve this, I just want to point out to you, this is, I did put the numbers in to my matrices for A and C, but if I just do the up arrow and go back to this and recall it without having to go back and type in everything, I get my numbers for my new matrix that I just did, because it's the same command. So now we know that we've got, this was how many shares of each stock, so he should get 1,500 shares of stock A, 1,200 shares of stock B, and 1,000 shares of stock C. Again, easy to solve. Okay, last problem I want to go over with you is, this is 4 equations and 4 variables. Now, some of my equations don't have all 4 variables in it. However, if we did, I just want to talk you through what you would have to do. You would have to choose 2 of the equations and then eliminate a variable. And now you'd have an equation with 3 variables. Then you choose another combination and eliminate the same variable, and then you do that again. So you have to do it 3 different times. Now you will have 3 equations with 3 variables. And then you have to start the process that you did for 3 equations and 3 variables. So it's extremely time consuming to do this by hand. However, we can do just a bigger matrix. So we would have a 1, this left gaps just so it makes it easy, a 1, 0, 1, 2, a 0, 1, -2, and 0, 1, 2, -1, and 0, 2, 1, 3, and -2. We'd have x, y, Z, W. And my answer matrix, 6, -3, -2, 0. I'm going to pause this so you don't have to sit here while I'm typing it all in. Okay, so notice this time, I'm going to go ahead and clear this. So notice if I go second matrix, notice I now have a 4 by 4 matrix and a 4 by 1 matrix, which is what you should have. So I'm going to multiply matrix A inverse times matrix C. I could have put all these in matrix B if you want to. It doesn't really matter. And so I get my answers. So we would have x equals 1, y equals -1, z equals 1, and w equals 2. And those would be my solutions. So you have an assignment to do. There are actually some problems you've already done before that you had to work out. Again, I want to see this portion here where you actually write down, build your matrix equation, then use your calculator to come up with your answers.